Thank you, Ursula Wirtz and Joseph Cox, for this beautiful slideshow. And if you missed it or would like to view it again, it will be on the ARAS website in a few days' time. Before we start, if you haven't already done so, please select your preferred language from the globe icon on your Zoom screen. If you cannot see it, please look for the row of three dots, and it should be there. And English speakers, you must select the English language if you want to hear the interpretation from Ukrainian into English. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome, and especially to you, our Ukrainian colleagues. Today, we stand with you once again as the evil of wartime continues to pervade your lives, whether you are in a war zone or in a safer place. Today is exactly 2 years since the initial solidarity event took place on the 21st of May 2022, when Anne Ulanov made a wonderful offering in the form of a paper that awakened all of our souls. It is Anne's paper that provided the libido to rename 4 Ukrainian unions, as the initiative was first named, to With Ukrainian Unions, because it was no longer only support and accompaniment for you, Ukrainian colleagues. It had become companionship. We have been the witnesses of your experience, and we have listened to your distress, your suffering, your hate, your anger and rage, as well as your love. And we have been incredibly humbled at your strength and your capacity not to shy away from your own reality. And so today we gather once more with you. Ursula Wirtz will guide us into the depth to retrieve our own individual archetype of wisdom that will help us and sustain us in the difficult times ahead. And there will be some time for sharing our images at the end of the active imagination. This webinar has the word Communitas in its title, which was first mentioned by Stein in one of our many discussions. Communitas involves a community of people organized without hierarchy, who steps out of their usual structures and whose experiences are related to liminality. Communitas involves transformation, which can then be brought back into society. I believe I can speak for many international colleagues when I say that we have witnessed you, Ukrainian colleagues, go through a profound transformation. Your generation may be remembered in the future as those who enabled the emerging of a unique Ukrainian identity, resisted and fought for it, and this cannot be defeated. If you've attended these webinars before, once, a few times, or have been there each step of the way, you will know that none of this would have taken shape without the vision of Catherine Cox, who you will hear at the end of the webinar. It was her dream, literally, her capacity to bring people together, her tremendous selflessness and seemingly endless energy that infected many of us who followed her lead. Communitas was also made possible by the trust and the generosity of heart expressed by all of you Ukrainian colleagues. Despite the belief that we could not possibly understand what you were going through, you trusted that we had good intention and wanted to help. At a personal level, I am incredibly grateful to have been part of this Communitas, to have embraced with resistance at times, diving into the liminal spaces in which we met, time and again, in the reading groups, in the social dreaming matrices, and in the webinars. From such different circumstances as yours, I have been transformed by the encounters, and I am still often lost in the mystery of what has happened. This Communitas has gathered an incredible number of people in the union world, too many to thank individually here. Suffice to say, the reading group and social dreaming matrices facilitators, the guest chairs, the members of the steering committee, the interpreters, the flyers designer, Marilyn Matthew, the technical wizards behind the scene, Sanctus Media, Worldly Wise, Joseph and Tom Cox, ARAS, as well as the Guild of Analytical Psychology, who have held the donations for WUJ and made the funds distributions as and when requested. And last but not least, the auction analysts, who not only agreed to give more of their time and expertise for a webinar, but also embraced with enthusiasm a new format in preparing and co-presenting with their Ukrainian colleagues. Throughout this journey, WUJ has continued to encourage donations for each webinar attended and recording watched. Today is no different. The link to the donation page will appear in the chat now. If you click on it, the open web page will be a reminder to donate when we end this webinar. And many thanks to those of you who have already made a donation. We will close the donation page on the 20th of June and make the distribution shortly after that of the funds raised since Christmas, which at the end of April amounted to just over £11,000 sterling. And now let me welcome our guest chair, Murray Stein. He is joining us by a recording as he could not attend in person. Murray is a training and supervising analyst at ISAP Zurich. He has been president of the IAAP of ISAP Zurich and lectures internationally. 7 volumes of his collected works have been published to date. Murray will speak just after our 2 guest speakers, Elena Liulina and Serhii Tekiuk. You may remember that Serhii talked alongside Murray in a 5th webinar. Serhii is an IAAP accredited Jungian training and supervising analyst, co-founder and president of the Ukrainian Jungian Association. He works as a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, associated professor of the Department of Psychiatry and Psychotherapy at the National Medical University in Vinnytsia, and is the author and presenter of seminars on analytical psychology. Elena gave a paper alongside Susan Schwartz in the 6th webinar. She is the president of the Ukrainian Developing Group. She has recently completed the Router training and become a fully qualified Jungian analyst. So very many congratulations, Elena. She is passionate about dancing and the practice of authentic movement. And she is also involved and interested in the development of psychedelic therapy as a treatment for PTSD. And now over to you, Elena.
Thank you. Dear friends, dear colleagues, I would like to start by expressing gratitude to all the organizers, hosts, and participants of this support project with Ukrainian Jungians. Each meeting on a different topic, prayers for Ukraine, for me personally, it was a space of inspiration with a symbolic, open window to the world where there is a sense of safety, a safe space. It was a journey in the community in search for answers to various pressing issues and questions of both personal and collective challenge. And thank you so much to all of you. The topic of the last webinar today is related to the search of the archetype of wisdom to try and ensure the future of life. But first, we face the archetype of war, which is always and everywhere scary, emotionally overwhelming and devastating. When hope disappears and even our inner guardian angel requires our support, as on the Wounded Angel painting by Finnish artist Hugo Simberg. Ukraine is a territory where different types of civilizations, different cultures, different religions converge. This is about that diversity and dissimilarity. At the same time, after the full-scale invasion of Russia, The experience of living in wartime united the entire population of the country in our resilience and indestructibility. And this example can be used to explore the archetype of resilience with manifestations of both healthy adaptability and flexibility, the ability to resist and not give in to despair, temporary adaptation and fragility. I would like to point out that there is a country and there is a state system, and not always they mean the same thing. Especially now, the historical memory of distrust in the state system and the danger of a totalitarian regime have been activated. I hope for a transformation within the country and in the majority of us, with the possibility of development and nurturing a culture of trust. And this is really about looking for the wisdom archetype. And of course, I understand, feel, and experience collective trauma and manifestations of post-traumatic syndrome. But at the same time, there is post-traumatic growth with development, formation of unshakable values in everyday simple actions, in friendly and personal relationships, in creative development in the framework of the professional community, exploring traditions and heritage of generations. It's like in Lina Kostenka's poem, Wings. The person doesn't fly, but has the wings. They are not made of fluff or feathers. They are made of truth, virtue, and trust. For some, it is made of loyalty in love. For some, of an internal desire. For some, it is made of sincerity, and for some, it is generosity, for caring, of song, of hope. It seems that humans do not have wings, do not fly, but they do have wings. Now you will see a modern version of the Wounded Angel painting. For some reason, yes, now you see it. Thank you. This is a modern version of the Wounded Angel painting. This is Pekka Vuorilihto. We don't know what happened to the wounded angel. Maybe this is miracle or whatever, but the angel is flying again. How do we learn to stop exhausting ourselves by trying to understand what is beyond understanding? How to try and find as much strength and wisdom as possible in our own resources. In my experience of nurturing a symbol of endurance, one of the most important things was a dream from the last century that my close and important person shared with me. And this is the dream. A young woman in a sunlit room was weaving a tapestry. Suddenly, an angel appeared next to her. He started quietly observing her work. At some point, he said, "Everything is colorful and beautiful, and it is so multicolored, but for some reason, you do not use the black color." To her question, why, she heard the simple answer: there is no life without this color. It's hard to disagree with it, but it's hard to accept. Thank you. Dear colleagues, after this poetic introduction by my colleague Olena, I would like to say a lot of words of gratitude and share my experience with the project with Ukrainian Jungians. But the time is limited today, so I will only say a few key words and impressions. For most of us, the outbreak of the full-scale war was a shocking event filled with suffering. Therefore, the professional and financial assistance from IAP and the national Jungian communities was a great support for us. Probably the most ambitious charity project was the WUJ project. Catherine Cox, Sally Otter, Claire Musho, and other colleagues accompanied us from the first weeks of the war and provided us with a lot of emotional support. They helped us to reflect on the issues and experiences that we unexpectedly had to face. They initiated and organized for us ever more various forms of support. It might not be visible for everyone, but in fact, the project with the Ukrainian Jungians was not only about the webinars and other events, it was about huge amount of preparation that took place between the webinars during each month. The first months of the war, that was shocking experience, and the need to survive emotionally and physically. And of course, there was real need for financial and emotional support. But over time, there was a certain adaptation process to life in war. And for us as psychologists, the intellectual component of the project became increasingly important, allowing us to comprehend the experience we were going through in a deeper way. In my opinion, the project with Ukrainian Jungians has become an essential part of the process of professional psychologists' comprehension of the collective tragedies in which we have become participants, either directly or indirectly. Ultimately, the project created a circle of communication, a community for us, a collective container, due to which we have had the opportunity to, from time to time, rise over above the literal war experience and treat our experience in a more conscious way, better relying on our inner resources. Being contained, filled with warmth and support in the circle of this project, we received an important resource and opportunity to be containers ourselves for our patients, supervisees, students, for our families and other compatriots. Thus, the healing effect of this activity was greater than anyone could have imagined. Thus, on behalf of members of the Ukrainian Jungian Association, on my own behalf, and I'm sure on behalf of all Ukrainian psychologists, colleagues, I would like to sincerely thank organizers of the project with Ukrainian Jungians, to Anne Ulanov for her paper written at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in Ukraine as a response to this inhuman act of inhabitants of one state against another one. For her text that inspired us to continue and contain and comprehend the collective experience we all face. Many thanks to all the speakers and facilitators who invested their time and energy into the intellectual part of this project. Many thanks to chairpersons and to all those who supported this project with their time, energy, and money. We are so grateful to all those who made charitable donations to financially support Ukrainian psychologists who found themselves in very difficult financial conditions due to the war. Many thanks to everyone who attended the webinars of the project. And with their energy, brought life into these meetings and exchanges. This is an unforgettable event, and you are unforgettable people I'll never forget in my life. And so it is for my colleagues. This project has become a clear confirmation of how united Jungians around the world are ready to help each other in difficult times.
This is Mary Stein speaking to you from my home in Switzerland. And I'm speaking as the chair of the final webinar for WUJ. The topic of this webinar is Journeying Within, Partaking of Communitas, Partaking of Communitas. This will be a session in active, which is taking a journey within. As you undoubtedly know, Jung came up with this method of active imagination for his own purposes when he was going through his midlife transformation process. When he had broken with Freud and he was at a loss of direction, what he was going to do with his career and with his life from now on, he decided to leave the spirit of the times and go with the spirit of the depths. And so he devised this method that we call active imagination, which we can say is equivalent to taking the journey within. And that's what this webinar is going to be about, but also combining that with the notion of communitas, because active imagination is a soul dialogue with the inner other. And these dialogues that occur in active imagination build up a network among the inner figures that eventually turns into a community of personalities, inner personalities. So we can say that the active imagination creates a communitas within the inner world. Communitas means connectedness, connectedness in depth, not just conversational, but a deep dialogue, which allows the freedom to speak what one is thinking and feeling, and requires that one is open to listening to the other. And this is what you see when you read the Red Book. When it was published in 2009, many of us were amazed to discover the contents and the very interesting stories that developed and dialogues that are contained within the Red Book. So many personalities, so many interesting events, scenes, landscapes, and powerful transformation experiences. So one of the main figures, one of the most important figures that Jung met up with in his inner journey, and that we can meet when we read about it, is a figure named Philemon. And Philemon is presented as the old magician in the first scene, where Jung goes to him in his garden and he asks for some lessons in magic. And a conversation ensues, a very interesting and humorous conversation between Philemon and Jung, the protagonist. We don't see Philemon's wife, Baucis, but we know she's there inside the cottage. And Philemon and Baucis are very well known from ancient times, from Greek mythology. You can read about them in Ovid's Metamorphoses. Philemon and Baucis were a couple who welcomed the gods into their home. The gods, Hermes, Zeus, were traveling, wandering, knocking on doors. Nobody would receive them. But Philemon and Baucis allowed the strangers to come into their home, sit down at their table, and share a meal with them. They experienced communitas with the gods, and for that they were richly rewarded. Now, Philemon's garden appears again in the last scene of the published Red Book. It's also Jung's garden. Jung is walking in his garden at noon one day and sees a strange figure in the garden, a strange personality person is having a midday vision. And then it suddenly turns into Philemon's garden, and Philemon is there, and he and this stranger figure have a conversation. It turns out that the stranger is Christ, the transcendent other. So who has come into Philemon and Jung's garden except the symbol of the self, Christ himself? And the conversation that ensues is extremely interesting, somewhat humorous, and Christ leaves a gift, which you can read about in the last lines of the Red Book. Philemon was such an important figure for Jung, and he took Philemon very seriously, not only in his conversations, but also when he built his tower at Bollingen. On the door of the tower, above the door, he carved a message that said, Philemonus Sacrum Fausti Penitentia. Shrine of Philemon, repentance of Faust. And Faust was the contrary figure to Philemon. Faust is an egocentric human being who wants to have everything his way. And he actually is responsible for the death of Philemon and Baucis in the last scenes of Goethe's Faust. And when Jung read that as a boy, he felt very bad. He felt identified with Faust, felt very guilty for what Faust had allowed to happen to Philemon and Baucis. And in repentance for that, he put this above his doorway on his tower at Bollingen, Shrine of Philemon, repentance of Faust. The Shrine of Philemon also means that it's a place where the gods are welcome. The gods can come and visit Jung in his tower at Bollingen. And to have a meal. This brings up the topic of communitas. When you sit down with people and have a meal, if you have conversations in depth, and the meal develops into a community experience, then you have the experience of communitas. It's symbolized in Christian tradition by the Last Supper, Jesus having a meal, his Last Supper with his disciples. Sitting around a table, having a meal together is a symbol of communitas. We can have that within ourselves, in active imagination with our inner figures, and we can have that with other people in our surroundings. And that's what we're doing here today. We're going to have a meal together. It's online, but we can all participate. Ursula Wirtz has prepared a delicious meal for all who wish to come to the table, and she will lead the session in active imagination. You are all welcome to join. Please come to the meal, to the feast with Ursula. It's my joy and privilege to introduce Ursula Wirtz to you. She's a good friend. She's a fellow training analyst and supervisor at ISAP in Zurich. But she's much more than a mere functionary in our institute. She's a soul guide for many of our students. She's an inspiring teacher. And she's a model of compassionate care for the soul. Her work in depth with traumatized people in many regions of the world really is a bright light into the darkness of the world we live in, and has opened the doors to transformative experiences of the spirit with many of the people she has consulted with. So it's a joy to share her with you today. Please welcome Ursula, who will guide you into the inner world of active imagination.
Thank you, Mary, for your very warm welcome. In my previous webinar, I posited that Jung regarded imagination as the mother of all possibilities. In today's presentation, I also invite your imagination, and I invite you to invoke the wisdom of the spirit of the depths as a means of navigating through these agonizing times of multiple crises. On our soul's journey, we will be meeting archetypal images to guide us through the sea of fear, grief, and despair. Jung himself surrendered to his fantasies. Similarly, I invite you to release unconscious content into the active imagination and rekindle your inner wisdom. I want to quote Jung saying, "The unconscious gives us all the encouragement and help that bountiful nature can shower upon man. It holds possibilities which are locked away from the conscious mind. For it has at its disposal all subliminal psychic contents, all those things which have been forgotten or overlooked, as well as the wisdom and experience of uncounted centuries which are laid down in its archetypal organs. For these reasons, the unconscious could serve man as an inner guide. By tapping into your unconscious, into the knowledge of your soul, you can evoke the wisdom of ancient figures or goddesses to assist in navigating the challenges you are currently facing. Wisdom can be experienced as an act of grace, healing wounds and restoring wholeness after so much fragmentation. I strongly believe the only way to improve the world is to make it wiser. in evoking archetypal images of wisdom, the great teachers of connectedness and kinship, they prompt us to consider questions of self-knowledge and values. The strength and the power of these embodiments of wisdom lie in their courage in dealing with death, uncertainty, and paradox. They are vessels of transformation, embodying the ground of being and the universe as an organic, self-regulating whole. The mythic images of Western and Eastern cultures, or the wise women of our fairy tales, they stimulate our inner visions and insights, which connect us to the sacred. Wise women have always fulfilled the role of custodians of the numinous, as healers and midwives, as priestesses and seers with a prophetic eye. Images of the Magna Mater can be conceptualized as a guardian angel, the spirit of creative inspiration, the soul of the world, and the principle of order and truth, thereby providing spiritual nourishment and fulfillment. I would now like to invite you to enter a symbolic space, a journey of getting to know yourself on a very deep level, on that level that provides a sense of meaning. And I propose to turn off your camera, as I will do, so that you have like more intimacy. Close your eyes and take a deep breath, allowing yourself to relax and to let go of any tension you may be holding on to. As you inhale, perhaps visualize breathing in benevolent energies. And with each exhale, allow any negativity to be released. Taking long, slow breaths, you feel more and more relaxed. Let yourself sink into a state of calm and receptiveness. Imagine that you are slowly, step by step, daring a descent dropping down into your innermost cave, a place where the treasures of life can be recovered. Stepping down deeper and deeper, you arrive at a vast cave steeped into a soft golden light. Standing there, you gradually begin to sense the presence of wise and compassionate beings emerging from the shadows. These are your inner figures of wisdom. They step forward to greet you, offering their guidance on your journey of self-discovery and growth. Look at these figures. Connect with each of them, allowing their wisdom to resonate within you. They have observed the course your life has charted, the myriad twists and turns, the pivotal moments that have shaped your journey. They invite you to reflect upon the milestones that have punctuated your existence. The genesis of ideas, the intricacies of relationships, the crucibles of illness, the tender moments of birth, and the agonies of death. These wise figures ask you to contemplate what has imbued your life's trajectory with purpose and direction. What passions have ignited your spirit? What pursuits have filled your heart with joy? And amidst the tapestry of your experiences, acknowledge the dreams that have faded into the mists of time, pondering when and why you relinquished your dreams. As you traverse the currents of memory, you encounter periods cloaked in shadows, the dark nights of the soul, when faith wavered, when cherished values were sundered, and existential questions echoed in the chambers of your being. These wise beings remind you that even in the depths of despair, there were beacons of hope guiding you towards the dawn. Allow yourself to embrace the lessons of the past, knowing that they have prepared you for the challenges that lie ahead. One of these wise beings steps forward, her aura pulsating with energy and vitality. She encourages you to embrace each experience with mindfulness and awareness. Her gaze filled with infinite possibilities. She invites you to trust in the path that lies ahead, to surrender to the flow of life. And she offers her guidance for an initiatory experience with the three goddesses of fate and destiny. She opens the gates of the cave that open to another space where three enigmatic figures await your arrival. Approach the first figure, cloaked in the mantle of destiny. She introduces herself as Pluto, the spinner of the thread of life. Observe and touch the thread she meticulously tends. Is it carefully woven or marred by knots and tangles? Is your thread of life brittle or strong like a rope? Is it silky and delicate? What secrets does its texture reveal about the fabric of your existence? Turn your gaze now to the second figure, Lachesis, the measurer of the thread spun by her sister Cloto, and the bestower of color upon the tapestry of life. Inquire about the colors she has added to your life's thread. Each hue a reflection of the myriad emotions and experiences that have colored your days. What color does your thread of life have? As she weaves the intricate pattern of your life, discern the underlying motive that guides its course. Which archetypal pattern can you recognize in the tapestry of your life? Is there a leitmotif woven into the tapestry of your life? Is there a symbol woven into your life's tapestry? A whispered mantra that shapes the course of your life? Finally, you stand before Atropos, the oldest of the three fates. With her big scissors, she cuts the thread of life. Because she is the precursor of time's passage and the arbiter of life's end. And she has questions for you. Please ponder her query with solemnity. What endeavors beckon for the gift of time? What do you need more time for? What dreams await fruition? And she asks, what would you like to finish? What is it that you need more time for? What legacies yearn for completion? And Atropos, being kind, she invites you to seek her counsel with a question born of the depth of your soul. What question would you like to ask this goddess of fate? What do you want to know from her? What burning question do you have that she might possibly have an answer to? In her benevolence, Atropos bestows upon you a precious gift, that which your heart and spirit most fervently crave in your personal realm, but also what you need most for your professional life. And she gives you this gift. What you need most for your soul and for your work. What gift did you receive? Did this gift come as a surprise? Is it a totally unexpected gift? Receive this boon with gratitude, knowing it shall illuminate your path henceforth. With heartfelt gratitude, bid farewell to the goddesses of fate. Their wisdom and grace, a guiding beacon in the labyrinth of existence. guiding you through the ebb and flow of life, particularly in these challenging times. And now you can slowly, step by step, ascend from the cove, from the cave, to the light of the day, back to the present moment. Change your focus from the inward journey to the outward environment. Take some deep breaths with long inhales and long exhales. Feel the breath in your body and gently come back into your body, stretching the body gently awake. And then you can open your eyes, perhaps rub your hands together, and carrying with you the gift and the revelations of your journey. Enriched by the tapestry of your past, re-centered and re-energized to meet the future with wisdom and hope and compassion. I now invite you to open your camera again. I didn't manage to close mine, so that we can begin the sharing of your experiences, which will be moderated by Sally and Maxine.
Thank you, Ursula, for a feast. And it's been a personal, intimate journey. I wonder if anyone is prepared or would like to share some of their experience of perhaps the gift they received. Colors. Max will introduce the Ukrainian contributions. It's taken a while to come around.
Yes, thank you. And you can also write in the chat in the Ukrainian language. I can read that. Otherwise, you can just unmute yourselves and share.
So I need to increase my volume apparently. I hope you can hear. And as you come back into the present, think about what came to you. There's lots of messages of thanks, and it's a short time. We have until 20 minutes for the sharing. More time and solitude, I'm reading in one message. Judy, you have to unmute yourself.
I have, yes. It's actually just to say it's really very difficult to come back and share. So maybe by saying that it might help. But certainly I can start with saying thank you to Ursula. Was very beautifully guided. What a gift you have, and I really appreciated being held by your voice and the narrative you gave, the conditions, the setting. So at least try and say that as a coming back into communication. You know, I normally struggle with visualizing, and it's certainly a response. You know, I can feel the response to how you can hold that setting and guide that I did. At least, you know, I got going. I really got going, and yes, so thank you. I will try and say a little something, but you know, some of it's just got quite a sort of personal narrative to it, which I feel I can't make relevant to others very well. But it's certainly a lovely insight into being sort of heavy with immense guilt about my sister who was killing herself with anorexia. So just I can share that, and that was very helpful. And that the gift, try not to talk, I'm so slowed down, I can't. I'm going to take up all 20 minutes now. I'm not. The gift was this beautiful piece of crystal. I'm just overjoyed to be given something I can kind of see and remember. So yeah, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
I can read messages in the chat from Natalia. She says that Goddess of Fate assured me that I still have a lot of time in this life, and also she gave me internal ears inside to hear the voice of my heart. Thank you for that experience.
It's interesting, isn't it, that we've connected unconsciously, an unconscious communitas, and it is hard to bring something so personal into a short period of time. But there's another message from Patricia Brosner, who thanks you, Ursula. That was a wonderful experience. The gifts I received and like to share is a scroll of paper. On it is the reminder to find peace in a secret place inside myself. That there's a lot of strength inside, but the way to get it leads to proper rest and calmness. And then another one I've started from Rowena. Again, thanks to Ursula. And the gift that Rowena received was the touch of a hand on her heart.
Hello, Max. At last. Lovely to see you. I'm very grateful to be among Brits, Americans, Italians, French, Ukrainians, Russians. Now, I got my gift on Sunday, and my gift on Sunday was rope, a piece of red rope with blue and yellow specks, speckled rope. I hope you can translate this into Russian and Ukrainian. My great-grandfather lies buried in Kiev, and he inspired me to write a book in the last 3 months. It was published last week. And I think it could be a Jungian book, but I won't bore you with it. The person who came in my cave, I've been in the cave for some time, thank you, Ursula, was Valunya. Valunya was born in Moscow, and she was my grandmother. She's not my biological grandmother, she's my spiritual grandmother, and she helped me to live from babyhood. Valentina Petrovna. So thank you very much. I'm here in London. I have Ukrainian and Russian antecedents. I'm a Pole and I'm a Brit. And I just thank God that I'm here at this time amongst you all, and I still have work to do. May God bless you.
Thank you, Anne. And some more messages. Anna Maria is very touched by this experience, thanks to Ursula. I was given a chain to stay connected. I'm feeling very blessed, she says. And another from Sophia. I received a book, Fate, which was written in an unknown language. Also a globe, keys, and some remedy. More thanks to Ursula. Also a lit candle, light, presence, guidance for the way. This is our cave. There are lots of messages of gratitude coming through. Cove, Max.
Another message in Ukrainian. From Victoria, and she says that she's very grateful. She received 2 gems, yellow and blue. The flag of my country. And Julia Martiniuk, thank you for the fabulous journey.
All positive and inspiring. I guess some might have been a little darker. Maybe they're not so easy to speak about. I was thinking of my own thread was transparent, which I was disappointed with, and then it started reflecting colours. So I think I've got a lot more work to do to think about the meaning of. I'm sure we all have work to do, don't we? And it continues to think about the meaning of these visions. I felt envious of the crystal, Judy's crystal. Neil, do you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I just was gonna share kind of the most striking thing for me as part of the meditation was when Ursula said that something to the effect of when the lessons of the past helping us with kind of the challenges of the future, something like that. And that really struck me, and because I just lost my job last week after 21 years. I was laid off, and so I was going through this existential kind of crisis, and it kind of my parents went through kind of the same thing in their lifetime. They went through the Depression, and my father was in World War II. And so it was like, and then my mother died when I was 10. So it was like, I felt like there's always been this encounter with like the threat of existence with the threat of life being taken away, not just with me, but, obviously with my parents, who were they were definitely scarred by the Depression and the war, and well, my father survived the war, but I think that to me, it really, when she said the lessons of the past, helping us with the challenges, to come, it realized that really facing life and death circumstances and survival kinds of situations for me it's seeking to catalyze something within my psyche that is absent, like a strength and a will. That was what I got. Like, it's trying to activate like a certain kind of will that's been dormant, and a vitality that has been dormant, a vitality for life and of life that would remain dormant had it not been for the kind of darker crucible that I think my parents never reconciled with, but I'm obviously coming into contact with those kinds of circumstances. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, something about survival.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah, I've studied astrology through Jung, but I have Saturn opposite the moon and Pluto conjunct the moon and squaring the sun. So those are very intense, dark kinds of placements. But I think through the meditation with Ursula, I realized that's not the whole story. It's there's this other thing that's wanting to be catalyzed and to come in as like a reconciling a reconciling energy, you know, to the situation that can only be catalyzed through the difficulty crucible. It's if that's the only way I could explain it, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to say something. You may know that I have written this book, Trauma and Beyond, and it has been translated into many languages, also Russian and Polish, and the Ukrainian translation is on its way. But what I want to say, the German title that I have chosen for the book is Die and Become, about the transformative power of suffering. And I think when I was listening to Neil, this is what came to me. This paradoxical process of die and become. And maybe in this active imagination, this kind of development provided by the wise ones who protect us through these really atrocious times. So that's what I just wanted to say about the die and become.
Thank you. There's a nice comment from Rhonda as well, of course, that Judy's crystal is also my crystal and everybody's crystal. This is shared, isn't it? From Claire, Musha, my thread was like a beautiful yet rough dental floss, and I needed more time to learn kintsugi to mend it again. Well, thanks from Anna in Argentina. It was a very moving experience. Thank you so much, Ursula. More time indeed, says Murray. Parallel from Anne with, thank you, Ursula. You chime with Rosemary Gordon's dying and creating. Thank you, everyone, for all the comments that you've written in the chat. I'm sure this is a process which has started with us tonight, which will continue in all of our minds. And now the time's come for us to leave the last word with the person who inspired the project and gave us so much energy and love throughout the project, and who is in our minds and has sent us a recording. She's been present with us all the way through and is with us tonight in spirit. So I'd like to give the last word to our dear colleague, Catherine Cox.
Hello, everyone. I am so sorry that I'm not with you this evening, especially as it is the final webinar in the webinar series and the final gathering planned for WJ for now. And I'm so sorry that I was pulled away from WJ so abruptly. It felt like a massive rupture. It was very difficult for me when I was so committed to what we were doing, and my heart was so with you. And I imagine it must also have felt very strange to you. My husband was very ill in hospital, and I was with him all the time there. And then eventually he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and severe heart failure. And he has had cancer and a couple of transplants, been battling away for 53 years, and decided not to have any further treatment, but to come home and to see out his days with me. And so I have been caring for him, and it's been very intense, very full on, very exhausting. It's also been very wonderful and very transformative, but I'm afraid it's just required the whole of my being to walk with him on these final weeks of his life. I feel particularly bad about not having been with you, because I know that so many of you are having it so much more difficult than I have. So it does feel rather embarrassing, really, not to have had the capacity to continue with WJ whilst everything else has been going on here. I know that whilst for me, when I'm up in the night with my husband, it's peaceful and calm and we're safe. And you have experienced, and still are not safe, the bombing and the exhaustion of being up in the night through being bombed, the anxiety about whether family members are safe. And I just have one person to grieve for, who's dying of natural causes, not as a result of some mad despot hell-bent on just wanton destruction. So I am dealing with this in my ordinary life, and what you are dealing with in your lives, also those of you who are in Israel, is so much more extreme, and grief at every level, not just for individuals, but for your country, your beautiful structures and buildings, for what evil is being done to women and men in occupied territories and so on. So I'm sorry that I'm not unable to match your capacity about that, but I do know that I'm doing the right thing. And I also want to say that in the midst of my being here, you have been in my thoughts, very much so. And I've been discussing with my husband over the last few months my concerns about what will happen after this webinar series finishes, as it will do this evening. How will we continue to support you? The support is more important now than ever, especially with Russia's huge increase in hostilities in these past few weeks. I know, speaking for myself with my husband, that difficult though this is, and unable that we are to live our normal life in any way when work is taken away and we can't even go for walks or anything at all. What gets us through is love. It's the love of family and friends and colleagues. Although many tears are being shed, there's also joy and laughter and memories. People are there alongside, and that is what is getting us through and completely transforms the experience. And that's really what WJ has been about. Is the most important thing is us just being alongside with you in your vulnerabilities and your strength and resilience that you so generously shared with us. And I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the depths that you've plunged, especially those of you who've managed to prepare papers. As I sit here exhausted and caught up in everything that's going on around me, I'm even more incredulous than I was that you've managed to produce those papers, and not just ordinary papers, absolutely exceptional presentations. I'm so grateful to you for your sharing in the reading groups and in the social dreaming matrices. I feel so privileged to have known you. And the other day I was preparing some food for my husband, and I suddenly thought in the kitchen as I was chopping away on the onions that one day we will look back on this time when Ukraine, the David in the saga of David and Goliath, said, no, we're not going to give up our country, our freedom, our culture. We're going to fight. And has withstood everything that has been going on with such courage and such integrity, been such an example to the world. So it's an immense privilege to be doing this with you. I feel immense gratitude for everything that I've learned along the way. Some of you may recall that I had a dream very early on, which was of being presented, solemnly presented, with the Red Book of Europe. And in the dream, I didn't really realize what I was being presented with. I thought it was some sort of travel book or something, but I suddenly did realize what it was. But that was the dream. And when I woke up, I really didn't want the dream at all. I couldn't work with it. I didn't want to think about it. There was nothing I could do with it. And over the course of the project, I've come to realize what that dream means, the enormity of what I was being presented with. And I have to say, it's not that I was anyone special, that it was the book that was special, not me. It's perhaps something we're all presented with. But it was something to do with how Jung appreciated that the individuation journey involves the past and the working through the processing, the redeeming of what has happened in the past. And that the individuation process inevitably involves bringing something back to society. It involves community. And the heading of this webinar has the word Communitas in it. And as I can testify now in this last stage of the journey with my husband, the thing that lasts is love. You can lose everything else, but love is the thing that endures. So how, when we get to the end of this project, do we enable that love to continue? And I'm always a little bit nervous about talking about love in a professional setting, about analysans or colleagues or anything like that. It's just slightly awkward. But one of the things I really have learned in this project is I have really felt love. I felt love for our Ukrainian colleagues, for colleagues in WJ. I marveled once, how could I feel love for these people that I haven't even met in person? And yet I recognize that that feeling was love. I was discussing this with Svetlana Shevchenko many months ago, I'm afraid it is now. But I think within this project, we have a real experience of love, and that love will continue. So although the project as it stands, the formal part of the project comes to an end today, and I think it has to, because WJ is outgrown its structures. It's just being funded by individuals behind the scenes who are paying out of their own pockets because we have no money. We need proper structures. It's very labor intensive. It needs a whole complete rethink. But we have experienced love, and that love goes on, and we can take that love within us. It really was real. It is real, what we have all experienced together. And I know that through this process and this transformation process for me within WJ, but also now a deeply transformative process as I face losing my soulmate, the love of my life, this deep encounter with death, this journey is very transformative. And I don't really know how I'll be when I come out the other end in a few weeks' time, probably. So I don't want to make any promises about coming back or organizing things or anything like that. But I can say that Ukraine has been in my heart throughout. I even floated the idea with my husband that I'd like to go to Ukraine. And he was just thought he was going to have a heart attack then and there, and warned me off about the dangers and so on. So we'll drop that one for now. But it shows how much you are within my heart. So I think we have a bit of a fallow time now where we hold that love within us and it sustains us. And we wait and see what emerges. And because it is a flat structure, it belongs to everybody. So anyone who has any ideas or wants to run with something, terrific, please do so. Don't wait for me to come back, because I tell you, I'm exhausted. So we could do with some fresh ideas and people willing to run with it. But in the meantime, there is something I think that we can all do. That being alongside people in time of difficulty is really important. And it does need to be actually physically alongside, not just vaguely thinking about them. It needs something a bit more practical, a bit more concrete. If everybody here this evening and everyone watching the recording of it were with their society or by themselves to do one thing over the next 12 months for Ukraine, we would be completely covered. Our colleagues in Ukraine wouldn't know what to do with themselves. It would be wonderful. It could be including inviting our Ukrainian colleagues to a lecture or to a case colloquia, or putting on some sort of a discussion with them. It could be organizing a social dreaming matrix, or even 2 or 3, so that you get a bit of continuity. I think the important thing is to have space really to encounter and to meet and to listen with them. To get a Ukrainian translator, which we have several, and not to have it too late in the evening, because of course our colleagues are very quiet, are very tired. But if everyone just did one thing, just invited our Ukrainian colleagues, and also I think our Israeli and our Taiwanese colleagues who, and those, not just Israeli, they're all those involved in that conflict and affected by it. That would be very, very significant. That would be enough. That would be enough. So I do invite everyone to think not just that somebody else is going to do it, because right now there is no one else going to do it, but for you to think, could I do that? Could I speak to my organization and we just do one thing within the next 12 months? So I want to express once again my profound gratitude for everything that you've given me over the last 2 years. To all the colleagues who've worked alongside me with WJ, to everyone who's spoken, contributed behind the scenes and front of house. And for me, it's not really goodbye, it's just a temporary au revoir. Those of you who live near farms will know that you can leave the land to be fallow for a year after a harvest, and then the nutrients return and you get another fertile crop. So it's not that the land is abandoned, it's just left to be fallow for a year. And I think we just have a little bit of a fallow time whilst we discern what would be the best way to proceed. And so with gratitude and thanks and hope, it now leaves me to introduce the prayer for Ukraine, and to invite you to join with me in listening to it and to saying the prayer. And I've got my Ukraine scarf that you may remember I was presented with. I think I've got it upside down here somewhere, but there it is with its beautiful colours. And to say that, of course, we all pray that our colleagues will stay safe, that they will be comforted in the grief, that they'll be given strength and resilience, and that the war, of course, will come to an end soon, and a peace, and a just peace. And so now, goodbye from me, and see you all soon. Bye.